Good day, my fellow developers. How are you doing today? So, what are we doing today? We are developing a flow that retrieves the email address of a user who creates a record in a Dataverse table. So, whereby you can use that email address to probably send a notification in your flow. So, without wasting so much of our time, let's get right into it. Now, this is a model-driven app that uses case table as its data source. All right. So I want to create a flow that whenever a record is created in this case table, I want to retrieve the email address of that user that creates that record and probably send a notification to the person wherever. Now, what you're gonna do is you log into your Power Automate, which is make this powerautomate.com. Once you're in Power Automate, you go to New Flow, Automated Cloud Flow. All right. Automated Cloud Flow. Now, let me name my trigger. Let me name my flow. Get email address. Can name it anything depending on your business scenario. Now, my trigger is going to be when a row is added in Dataverse or modified. So I create that will be my trigger. Meaning when a record is added to a Dataverse table, so my change type is going to be added, meaning when a record is added to a specific table in Dataverse. Now I'll choose my table name, which is going to be cases. My table name, which is cases, which is this, because just judging from this model-driven app, sorry, judging from this model-driven app, the data source is cases. All right. So let me go back to my flow. Table name cases, scope. I'll make it organization. Then leave that. So now, when a row is added to this table, now your next action is going to be get a row by ID. All right, because we want to retrieve the email address of the user that creates that record in Dataverse table. So it's going to be get a row by ID. All right. So you want to get a row. Now you choose a table. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Yeah, there's a table in there, there's a system table in Dataverse called users. And what is that user? That user stores the the names and email address of the user in your environment, probably in your organization that makes use of Dataverse in your organization. That's it saves all the names of the user in your Microsoft Intra ID. All right, in your Microsoft Intra ID is a system table that saves all the names of all the users that make use of Dataverse in your organization. All right, so when you select an action, get a row by ID, your table name, you're going to use a table which is called users. Here it is, you see, users. It's a system table by Microsoft that saves the names, the details of all users in your Microsoft Entra ID and that have access to Dataverse that creates a record in Dataverse. All right. So select users table name. Now we want to select low ID. Now, this is where it really gets interesting. Please pay close attention. All right. So now you select from the dynamic content. Here you have to select the row ID. But how where we going to get this row ID? This is where it gets interesting. Your trigger is when a row is added, you select more, then you search for created by the value. This this holds the unique ID that connects to the use to the because this created by it's a lookup column, all right, that looks up to users table, which is this users, all right. So this look it's a record ID that links both the user table and this case table. All right, so that's how you can retrieve the email address of the user that creates this record. So created by, I'll select not type, created by, that's value. All right, created by, that's the value. Okay, so clear this value. Okay, can you see? Select this value. Now When you add another, let's say, okay, I want to add a compose action to that will save the email so you can see the email address of that user. If you try to if let me go to data operation, let me search for compose. So you just want to view the email address of that user, okay? And you go to compose. Let's compose. Let me just search for data operation. I think it's under data operation, right? Yeah, this is compose. Okay. Now, if you select from dynamic contents, you see the results that comes from this get a row by ID. You see this get a row by ID. This is where you see all the information that is in that user's table. This is where you see the username, you see the address. Then there's a column that is called primary email. That's where you get the email address from that user that creates the record. Just keep scrolling. You see, like I said, it saved the details of all the users in your Microsoft Entra that have access to Dataverse, that has been interacted with Dataverse. All right. So let me go to primary. Where's primary email. Primary. Can you see this? It's primary email. So this is where we bring out the email address of that user. Okay, can you see? Primary email. So I just added that so we can view the email address from this action. All right, so let me save and publish my flow. Let me save. Still saving. Okay, it's saved already. All right, now let me receive again, and now let me create a record. Okay, let me create the record using this model driven app and see if I'll get the email address of that user. Okay, now let me go back to my model driven app. Let's create a record. Name, full name. Let me just choose Charlie Brown. So this is just a demo. Case details none. Case status was pending. Then I save and close. Okay. Now my flow will have triggered. And let me go to my flow. See, yeah, the flow has triggered already. Now, see, just 7 seconds ago. Okay. Now, exactly. It's now let me inspect my compose action. Can you see? This is the email address of the user that creates the record. So this is how you can get the email address of the. I was when I created the record. So this is how you can get the email address of your user. Then you can use this email address in your subsequent action. Probably want to send a notification. You want to do this. Whatever you want to do with the email address. So this is how you can get the email address of a user that creates a record in a Dataverse table. I hope this helps someone. Happy automating and see you next time.